Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew.
I hope that you have a Merry Christmas with your loved ones this year. Tonight will be the Christmas special instead of the community's selected New York State video. That video has been moved to tomorrow night.
Be me, 22. Walking through the mall with my mom and little brothers. We walk by where they have Santa sitting for pictures. One family in line, no others. Mall is pretty dead, it's on its last legs, don't think it'll be open much longer. Family gets their photo, and Santa waves at us and says Merry Christmas as we walk by. We respond in kind. We sit down for about 30 minutes. Nobody coming up to Santa, his ho-ho-hos echo throughout the hardly filled mall. 10 minutes later, still nobody in his line. He starts singing White Christmas, stops mid-song. 5 minutes later sings Baby It's Cold Outside, again shortly stops. As we leave, he wishes us another Merry Christmas. This was seriously one of the absolute saddest things I've ever seen. Whenever I think about it, I almost feel like crying. This happy jolly old man just wants to spread Christmas cheer, and he can hardly get a single family to take a photo, his great singing just echoing through the almost dead mall.
My grandpa always talked about angels talking to him in his sleep. He's been talking about that kind of stuff for like 10 years before he died. My dad and I moved him to our hometown and buy him a house and shit. We visit him once a month. Angel stories every time. He says they sat on his bed with him and they just talk like old buddies. About a year after we moved him, he wrecked his car into a telephone pole. Nervous system is shutting down completely. Entire family is flying in from around the country. We visit him in the hospital, old folks' home every day. Every day we sit there for hours and just talk to him. He isn't talking back. Probably can't even hear us, or just not able to respond. Visit him on Christmas Eve. Same old thing we talk about. He doesn't respond. Family getting ready to head home. I walk up to him, hug and kiss his head and say goodbye grandpa, love you. Knowing this is one of the last chances I could say it. He turns his head in a split second, looks me in the eyes and says I love you too, be a good boy. I can see the angels. I start to bawl and walk outside. I don't like people seeing me cry. Get home and go to bed. Wake up Christmas morning. He had died early in the morning. He saw the angels coming for him.
I have a few that are close together, but I'll pick the most interesting one as the others are just random snippets and I can't honestly tell which came first. 4 years old. Night of Christmas Eve. My older sister and I stayed up all night for Santa in the living room. Tree in the room all lit up as well. Fall asleep around 11. Wake up during the night. Hear the rattling of ornaments on tree. I think it's my dog. Look over towards the kitchen door. Pitch black past the door, but something is standing there. Some human figure, at least 6 feet tall, wrapped completely up in a mummy-esque fashion. Can see its eye sockets and mouth. They were empty and black. I stare at it for minutes, if not longer. Empty feeling throughout. It gives me a smile and I can see its sharp, visceral teeth. Freak the hell out at this point. Close eyes, can barely breathe. Hear the jingling of the tree again. And I was out after that, although whether it was from waking up again, assuming it was a dream, or from just not remembering the rest is questionable. Strangely, I remember the next day though, as I got a Sega that Christmas. But honestly, it wasn't scary until it smiled at me and I didn't really feel like he was out after me. If anything, it felt more like a guardian and he just wanted to pop a quick joke. I suppose it's odd that I think of it that way, but that is just how I felt. Still one of my most vivid memories to this day, although I swear I have a light case photographic memory.
This last Christmas I went home to Utah to visit my family. I hadn't been back there for 4 years after I left for college and I did everything in my power not to go back. However, this year my mother had been very sick without any diagnosis. All they knew was that she was getting worse. So I really had no choice but to go back for the holidays. As I drove through the canyon that led to the tiny town I came from, I grew very anxious. Luckily, I had packed a weed brownie, so I knew I could eat it as soon as I got home. When I arrived, they welcomed me with open arms and it was dinner time. We ate, talked a little bit, and then I insisted on going to bed because I was so tired. I woke up Christmas Eve to a pounding sound outside. I looked out my window and saw a little kid in our backyard hitting a stick against our shed like he was swinging a baseball bat. I opened the window and yelled out at him, telling him to cut it out and that it was too early to be doing shit like that. He looked up at him for a long moment and continued going about his business. I was in no mood, and I already have a distaste for children anyway. I put on some pants and went outside. I thought he had bolted when I looked over at our snow-covered peach tree and saw he was building a snowman. The snow was dirty and he wasn't wearing any gloves, but that's the kind of desperate things you do when you're from a small town with shit snow to begin with. He picked up a stick, the same one he was hitting against the shed, which was now in 2 pieces, and shoved them into the snowman's midsection. I asked if he was cold, and he said a faint "yeah." He was a shy little kid, which I understood because I was a stranger. Then he said to me,
"How's the cut on your hand doing?"
At first I didn't realize what he was talking about, and then I realized he was talking about this small scar on my palm I gave myself when I fell down a tree when I was 6 or so. I asked him how he knew I had that. He just went on picking up stones and putting them as a droopy smile. He then walked over to a bag of coal we had under our porch. He was acting like he owned the place. He pulled out a few charcoal pieces and put them on as eyes. I finally said to him, "Why are you building a snowman in my backyard?" And he said it was Christmas and that he always builds a snowman during Christmas. I asked him, "Who are you?" And he said his name was Ozzie, but that was just his nickname. The kid looked cold, so I asked if he'd like to come inside and call his parents. Everyone else was still asleep and I put on some hot water on the stove. I showed him the phone and made myself a cup of tea and made him some cocoa. When he was done on the phone, he said they'd come pick him up. He sat down and I gave him his cup and he said it was his favorite and that I made it just the way he liked it, with a ton of chocolate. He asked what I was drinking and he thought it was gross. I used to hate tea too, I told him, but that it grows on you once you get older. Eventually he started to warm up to me and started talking about his school. He said he didn't like it and that he hated all of his teachers. I asked him why and he couldn't explain it. I told him it was important to work hard in school and it's harder to catch up if you don't work hard now. I knew from personal experience, as I hated school when I was his age too, but forced myself to work hard after I knew college was my only way out of this town. He then said that he especially hated his teacher named Mr. Scott, who taught math. I thought this was strange because I had a teacher by that same name when I was little too. He called the man creepy, which made me even more suspicious that it was the same person. But I knew that Mr. Scott had died the year I was a junior in high school. The boy then said that he missed his brother who had just died in a car wreck. Now I knew something was up because my brother had died too. I asked him what his real name was, but he wouldn't tell me, only saying that it was Ozzie. Finally he got upset with my persistence and shouted at me,
"Don't let him get away this time,"
and ran out the back door. I tried to run after him, but there was a knock at the door and I answered it thinking it was his parents. It was my uncle who had brought by some presents for our tree. I hadn't seen this man in years and he had aged so much I hardly recognized him. He put the presents under the tree and I offered him a cup of coffee. He said sure and then persisted to talk to me about what I had been studying, which hadn't been much considering I was going to a liberal arts college. He mentioned that he knew I would be in town because my father had told him. He tried to reminiscence with me, though I didn't remember much from my childhood. He also asked if I was doing better since I tried to self-end myself in junior high, which was really awkward, but I was doing better, so I told him I was fine. He then asked why I hadn't been drinking my hot chocolate and I said I had been drinking tea. He then pointed out the entirely full cup of cocoa on the table. I thought it strange that the boy would talk about how much he loved it but not drink a single drop. I told him it was for Ozzie, who was just here but ran out the back door. My uncle replied,
Ozzie? Wasn't that your nickname when you were little?
Finally my uncle seemed frustrated and told me to wish my family a Merry Christmas and he left. I went to the backyard to see if the boy was there and surprisingly he was. I told him he should get home to his parents because they must be worried about him. The boy started crying and asked why I didn't stop him. Stop who? I asked, and he said, my uncle. My uncle just brought a few presents by to wish us a Merry Christmas. I said. Now the little boy said I was a loser and he didn't want to talk to me anymore. I had had enough, so I went to grab onto his arm and he bolted away and I chased him. He climbed up the peach tree. He wouldn't come down, so I had to prove I wasn't taking any bullshit from a kid, so I climbed up after him. He got really far out on a branch trying to get away from me and finally he fell, trying to save himself at the last moment. I got down and ran to him and he was crying his eyes out. He was bleeding badly on his palm when he tried to grab the tree. I rushed inside to find some bandages and was met by my uncle. He had let himself in the house and this made me angry because he had a history of doing this before. It's a small town, so we don't lock our door every day, especially on Christmas Eve. I was full of adrenaline, so I told him, you can't just fucking come in here whenever you like, and he said,
Calm down, Ozzie.
And I shouted at him not to call me that. I told him to get out and to not return. You're a piece of shit CM criminal and if you don't fucking leave I'll call the police, you fucking shithead. His face was full of rage and I couldn't believe what I had just said. I had worked so long to keep that a secret that I had never spoken it out loud before or even thought about it for years. He threw out a few grunts and he stormed out of the house. I locked the door. I found the first aid kit and ran outside to find Ozzie. He wasn't there anymore, and neither was his snowman. Only a puddle of dirty water was left.
Be me. New Year's Eve 2012. Visiting my hometown on Christmas break from college. With a few buddies from high school trying to find some plans for the night. Get a text from one of our other buddies that is throwing a party. Tell buddy to take me to my parents' house real quick because I have some weed and we should blaze before we go to the party. We go to my house, pick up the weed, and drive down the street and park in front of the corner house while we wait for the address. It drives past us with the brights on and then immediately turns around and parks behind us. See the driver's side door open up and my friend floors it. Hit the stop sign at the end of the street and make a right. Look back and the car behind us literally runs the stop sign to keep up with us. My friend is literally going 70+ miles per hour in a residential area and the car is on our arse. Friend speeds up and makes a few turns until we lose the car. We ended up having a fun night, but that event was a little weird. We never found out who was in the other car or why they were following us, but we were safe.
Be a Marine in Monterey, California. Decided not to take leave for Christmas because I'm a dumbass. Naturally, I get stuck on duty every other day. Duty is a 24-hour shift, checking the barracks once an hour. Christmas Eve, getting briefed by the duty NCO. Give me a roster, nobody in the barracks albeit since they all took leave. My only job is to make sure that no one breaks in and uses the building to get drunk or fuck. Spend the next 12 hours clapping and watching movies. It's about 2,300 and I hear footsteps above me. Grab the duty hammer and rush out of the duty hut to catch whoever up there. There's only one stairway leading up to the second and third deck, so they'd have to jump or go by me. I get to the second deck and start looking around. Common room was empty but the light was turned on. Look around a bit more. Check the third deck just in case and head back down. Nothing happens for the next few hours. I'm watching Superbad or some shit. 1 a.m. rolls around and I hear a door slam above me. Grab the duty hammer and head back upstairs. This time I don't rush into either door since I wasn't sure which door got slammed. Waiting by the stairs trying to be sneaky and catch whoever in there. 5 minutes go by and I head up, still trying to be sneaky. Second deck is good. Third deck has a light on. The only way to open the outside doors is with a keycard that's keyed individually to everyone that lives in the barracks and the master key, which I had. Start checking every room. No lights are on, no one hiding in the rooms as far as I could tell. Sigh and make sure every light is off, every door is closed and locked. Do the same for the second and first deck. Debate recording it in the logbook, but since I hadn't actually caught anyone I wrote that all was secure. After all was secure. 330 or a little bit before. Fog has rolled in. This isn't unusual because Monterey is right off the ocean. But this fog was really thick. I couldn't see 10 feet above me, or the third deck from the first floor. Doing my hourly tour and notice something in one of the windows on the third deck. A light is blinking on and off in there, not like a room light but a smaller one, like a flashlight. I've got you now, fucker. Head up the stairs as quietly as I can and open the door. The room was the first one on the left on the inside of the barracks, there's no way they could have gone anywhere. Throw the door open and flick the lights on. Trying to surprise whoever it was, but the room is empty again. Look everywhere in this room, there's absolutely nothing. Rooms aren't very big either, so it's not like there's a lot of ground to cover. Decide after 10 minutes that I'm just hallucinating from lack of sleep or something. Close the door and turn to go back downstairs when I notice the door on the far end of the hall was ajar and the light was on. Head for it. This fucking room's empty too, but I know for a fact that all the doors have been closed and all the lights have been off. I eventually got relieved by one of the only other Marines left on base and went to bed in my own, non-haunted barracks. I asked around to some of the Marines that lived in that barracks normally without sounding too crazy. Most of the rooms were empty as is, and only a handful of Marines lived there normally. But people always heard noises or doors slamming, toilets flushing or windows closing in the empty rooms. Most of the time it was just Marines looking to screw the girls or drink away from their roommates, but that's all I got.
I had what I think was sleep paralysis on Christmas Eve night. I was having a dream of a guy who seemed familiar, but I couldn't place who he was. Then he started taunting me about personal things and making me feel extremely low. Then I woke up and I heard an electrical buzzing in my ear. And it felt like something was coming out of my left nostril, like a big worm or something. It was weird because I could feel it like it was up inside my brain. Then I noticed that there was a light in the corner of my room. It was not extremely odd or bright, it was about the brightness of a cheap flashlight. Then it started taunting me with sounds and images. I never really tried to move because I was too scared to. It did not feel like I was being held down, but it did seem like I was paralyzed. Then the room kinda started flashing scenes of my bedroom, but they were kind of all different looking. One was black and white, I think another may have had a red tinge to it. But I never saw anyone or anything. It was just an overwhelming feeling of something being there. When I finally came to enough and the visions and taunting faded, I got up out of bed. It was 6 o'clock in the morning and I tried to call a friend, but she was sleeping. I was up for over an hour shaking like a leaf, because at the time I thought I had a demon in my room, brain taunting me. Now I think it may have been a bad dream I didn't fully awake from. The electrical popping noises seem to be common with sleep paralysis, so I think that's what it was.
3 years ago, Christmas Eve. Spending the evening with my side of the family with my husband. At my grandparents', my childhood home. I never liked the place. We are there out of obligation. These people are not good people. Same passive-aggressive, slightly unnerving plastic behavior all night. Grandmother wants us to go upstairs to see the rooms, which have not changed since I lived there. People finally start going home. Grandmother is still pestering us to go check out the upstairs. Everyone is gone now except for my mother, grandparents, my husband and I. Grandmother really wants us to head upstairs. Husband and I check out the upstairs alone, everyone else stays downstairs. Chatting as we go from room to room. Nothing changed much in any of them. Get to grandfather's upstairs office. Overwhelming smell of decay. Not like grocery meat, but the distinct smell of a whole animal or body. Meat, innards, bowels, etc. Nothing small. Something at least medium dog-sized. Judging from experience via friends into taxidermy. We continue conversation normally to not make a scene while we carefully look around. Nothing. Loading nope.x. We head downstairs after our 2-minute tour. Keeping casual as though nothing is wrong, still chatting. But I'm intent upon bringing up the smell. We immediately find all three of them, mom and grandparents, standing very quiet and very still, staring up the staircase. Remembering the look in their eyes, it almost looked as though they were trying to read us for something. Looked pretty damned malicious. Recall how bad grandmother wanted us to go upstairs. All three go into immediate plastic mode, like nothing happened. Noped straight out of there, never bring up the smell. Ended up being the last straw situation that finally drove me to cut off contact with them. I haven't spoken to them since.
Last Christmas. I lived near a lake which was in a small forest/park area. Loads of people and kids hanging around during the day. It's well known to have been assaults and beatings there during the night. A corpse was found by the lake once, apparently a working girl who didn't pay her debts. Several other vague reports of people who drowned in that lake under mysterious circumstances, most likely crime-related. Most people recommend to stay the fuck away from it during the night. I worked Christmas Eve that day and a co-worker offered to drive me to work the day before because I usually take the train. He lives across the park. He tells me to just cross the park and find the gate. Very skeptical, but agree to it. Next day, 6 o'clock a.m. It's pitch black outside. Get really nervous, but decide to do it anyway. As I start walking towards the lake, the lights from the houses and streets fade. There are no lights whatsoever in the park. The moon illuminated the lake in the middle, but it got really dark because of how thick the forestry bit was. I follow the path, which goes just along the lake. The path, which was wide enough to drive on, has now slimmed down to be just enough for one person to walk on. The path strays from the lake and starts going into the forest. It gets really dark and starts to look like the first Slender game. Exactly the same when I look up and see the sky behind the treetops. I've been walking for about 15 minutes and it doesn't feel like I'm getting closer. I come to a small concrete building, looks like a small bus shelter. The path sways so you can see behind the building. I stop and my entire body freezes. By now my eyes have somewhat adjusted to the darkness and the moonlight breaking through the treetops. The light falls on what seems like a hunched-over man. I think it's probably a homeless person. The wind starts to blow and the clothes on it start to move. It looks like he's wearing some rugged cape or long coat. It slowly stands up and his cape becomes quite wide. I'm 6'3", but this thing was almost as tall as the shelter, which are quite big. It's standing up, but I can't make out if it's looking at me or if I'm looking at its back. I can't move and I feel like this is where I'm going to die. I keep thinking it's going to attack me, or if it's a homeless person he's going to stab me. It starts moving and it seems like it's taking a step towards me. Something snaps in me and I turn around and I run like never before. I don't dare to look back. I call my co-worker and say there is no way I'm going through there. He picks me up at a different spot. I've never been so terrified in my life. I'm glad I don't live there anymore. That was the scariest fucking experience in my life. I still remember being frozen and just looking at that thing. Then again, it could have been a homeless person and my mind putting a spin on the whole thing.
Krampus is a beast-like creature from the folklore of alpine countries thought to punish children during the Yule season who had misbehaved, in contrast with Saint Nicholas, who rewards well-behaved ones with gifts. Krampus is said to capture particularly naughty children in his sack and carry them away to his lair. My grandmother was from Switzerland. I heard about Krampus a few times as a kid. The whole holiday season creeped me out a bit after that. My parents used to do the whole dress up as Santa thing just in case any of us wandered out in the middle of the night. One Christmas when I was 8 or 9, I thought I would try to stay up until midnight when Santa supposedly came to get a glimpse of him. I didn't make it, of course, but I did wake up at about 3 a.m. to go to the bathroom. I assumed I had missed Santa since the lights were off and I could see down the hall that presents were already under the tree. I decided to sneak over to the tree to get a look and see if the cookies we had left out were eaten. I tiptoed down the hall as quietly as I could, sure everyone was asleep. As I was inspecting the presents, I heard the wooden floorboards creaking just around the corner in the next room. I froze, not sure why someone would be up in the completely pitch-black house, walking around at 3 a.m. I remembered my grandmother telling us about her younger cousin who disappeared Christmas morning when she was just 7. No one ever saw her again. She told us it was Uncle Krampus. After a moment I decided to investigate. I turned the corner and there it was. It was our dog Leonard humping his giraffe toy. But it was really just a decoy. Before I knew it, I was stuffed inside a heavy burlap sack with a strange smell. That's the last thing I remember. The next morning I woke up in my bed as normal. My grandmother died the next day.
Be 10-year-old boy visiting grandparents in Frankfurt, Germany. Be somewhat spoiled as my upper-middle-class parents didn't believe in spanking. Act like a mischievous little shit, pushing a cat off the counter, hiding the remote just for fun, etc., etc. One day my parents are out to dinner and both my grandparents are downstairs getting ready to eat some supper. Alone in my room, playing with my army men when I hear something clawing inside of my closet. Think it's my grandparents' dumb cat who's slowly going blind from old age. It got stuck in the weirdest places, don't ask. Go to open the door. Holy fuck, there's a man in my closet. Holy fuck, he looks deformed and has goat horns. Holy fucks everywhere. Try to scream, but Krampus pulls me in the closet. Holds my head to his chest, with one hand, muffling my screams. Starts to beat me over the back with a bundle of birch sticks. Birch sticks hurt, for your information. Freaking out and shitting myself, I hear Krampus making some kind of weird high-pitched goat sound in my ear, then telling me I've been a bad boy in Old German. Finally let me go. Run downstairs with piss all over me, and a load in my pants. Grandparents call the cops and Grandpa runs upstairs with a golf club. Cops show up and search the house. Find nothing, no sign of breaking and entering. Tell my grandparents what I saw. They look scared and never talk about it again.
The Yule Cat is a monster from Icelandic folklore. A huge and vicious cat said to lurk about the snowy countryside during Christmas time and eat people who have not received any new clothes to wear before Christmas Eve. The Yule Cat has become associated with other figures from Icelandic folklore as the house pet of the giantess Grilla and her sons, the Yule lads. The threat of being eaten by the Yule Cat was used by farmers as an incentive for their workers to finish processing the autumn wool before Christmas. The ones who took part in the work would be rewarded with new clothes, but those who did not would get nothing and thus would be preyed upon by the monstrous cat. The cat has alternatively been interpreted as merely eating away the food of ones without new clothes during Christmas feasts. The perception of the Yule Cat as a man-eating beast was partly popularized by the poet Johannes Kotlum in his poem Jólakátturinn.
Dead Morrows predates Christianity as a Slavic wizard of winter. In Slavic mythology, Frost or Morozko is a snow demon. Under the influence of Orthodox traditions, the character of Dead Morrows was transformed. Since the 19th century, the attributes and legend of Dead Morrows have been shaped by literary influences. The play Snegirotka by Alexander Ostrovsky was influential in this respect, as was Rimsky-Korsakov's Snegirotka with libretto based on the play. By the end of the 19th century, Dead Morrows became a popular character. Following the Russian Revolution, Christmas traditions were actively discouraged because they were considered to be bourgeois and religious. Similarly, in 1928 Dead Morrows was declared an ally of the priest and kulak. Nevertheless, the image of Dead Morrows took its current form during Soviet times, becoming the main symbol of the New Year's holiday that replaced Christmas. Some Christmas traditions were revived following the famous letter by Pavel Postashev, published in Pravda on December 28, 1935. Postashev believed that the origins of the holiday, which were pre-Christian, were less important than the benefits it could bring to Soviet children.
The Scandinavian Naken, Naki, Nok were male water spirits who played enchanted songs on the violin, luring women and children to drown in lakes or streams. They were thought to be most active during Midsummer's Night, on Christmas Eve and on Thursdays. When malicious Nokken attempted to carry off people, they could be defeated by calling their name. This, in fact, would be the death of them. When malicious Nokken attempted to carry off people, they could be defeated by calling their name. This, in fact, would be the death of them.
In the folklore of Bavaria and Austria, Perchta was said to roam the countryside at midwinter, and to enter homes between the 12 days between Christmas and Epiphany, especially on the 12th night. She would know whether the children and young servants of the household had behaved well and worked hard all year. If they had, they might find a small silver coin next day, in a shoe or pail. If they had not, she would slit their bellies open, remove stomach and guts, and stuff the whole with straw and pebbles. She was particularly concerned to see that girls had spun the whole of their allotted portion of flax or wool during the year. She would also slit people's bellies open and stuff them with straw if they ate something on the night of her feast day other than the traditional meal of fish and gruel. The cult of Perchta, under which followers left food and drink for Frau Percht and her followers in the hope of receiving wealth and abundance, was condemned in Bavaria in the Thesaurus Pauperum, 1468, and by Thomas Ebendorfer von Haselbach in De Decem Preceptis, 1439.
Grilla is a mythical giantess living in the mountains of Iceland. Most of the stories told about Grilla were to frighten bad children, and her name is mentioned in Snorri Sturluson's 13th century Edda. She has the ability to detect children who are misbehaving year-round. During Christmas time, she comes from the mountains to search nearby towns for her meal. She leaves her cave and hunts for the children. She devours children as her favorite snack. Her favorite dish is a stew of naughty kids and she had an insatiable appetite. According to legends, there was never a shortage of food for Gryla.
The Kalakantsaros is a malevolent goblin in southeastern European and Anatolian folklore. Kalakantsaros are believed to dwell underground, but come to the surface during the 12 days of Christmas, from the 25th of December to the 6th of January, from the winter solstice for a fortnight, during which time the sun ceases its seasonal movement. Kalakantsaros are believed to be creatures of the night. According to folklore, there were many ways people could protect themselves during the days when the Kalakantsaros were loose. One such method was to leave a calendar on their doorstep to trick the visiting Kalakantsaros. It was believed that since it could not count above 2, 3 was believed to be a holy number, and by pronouncing it, the Kalakantsaros would supposedly kill itself. The Kalakantsaros would sit at the doorstep all night, counting each hole of the calendar, until the sun rose and it was forced to hide. Another supposed method of protection from Kalakantsaros was to leave the fire burning in the fireplace all night, so that they could not enter through it. In some areas, people would burn the Yule log for the duration of the 12 days. In other areas, people would throw foul-smelling shoes in the fire, as the stench was believed to repulse the Kalakantsaros and thus force them to stay away. Additional ways to keep them away included marking one's door with a black cross on Christmas Eve and burning incense. According to legend, any child born during the 12 days of Christmas was in danger of transforming to a Kalakantsaros during each Christmas season, starting with adulthood. It was believed that the antidote to prevent this transformation was to bind the baby in tresses of garlic or straw, or to singe the child's toenails. According to another legend, anyone born on a Saturday could see and talk with the Kalakantsaros.
I have one for you. A strange one. A few years back, I went to work at the mines up in northern Quebec. It's harsh work and you're isolated, but it pays really well and you get both free rent and food while you're there, so if you can handle it, it's definitely worth it. Still, it gets pretty lonely up there, especially during the holidays. So, it's Christmas Eve and we have the day off tomorrow, so we're partying in the common house, which is kind of a bar and dining room at the same time. We have some music on. People are drinking beer and people are playing pool despite the fact that we're missing one of the balls. And of course, someone has to fuck up and go.
Man, I wish I could be with my wife and kids right now.
Killed the party all right. Next thing you know, everyone is just sitting there, silent, wishing they could go back to their family. I'm from Montreal myself, so we're quite a few of the guys. And then, Leo spoke up.
I might have a way, Guy. We could go to Montreal tonight and be back by sunrise.
Of course, most people just called him stupid, but a few of us decided to see where he was going with this, and he told us to follow him to his cabin. In total, there were 8 of us, all from Montreal. He told us to get our coats and meet him by his pickup truck. So, I got my things and met him there. His pickup truck was parked by a huge dead tree. Once he made sure everyone was there, he told us to shush up, and to not say anything. To remain quiet until he told us everything was clear. Once he got everyone to shut up, which took a few minutes since 2 or 3 of us had a few beers already, he knocked on the tree 3 times, then 2. We waited there, just long enough to start thinking he was crazy when some fucking guy stepped out from behind the tree. The guy was huge, easily 7 foot tall, wore a heavy black fur coat and a black wide-brimmed hat. The lower half of his face was wrapped in a scarf, just as black as the rest of what he was wearing. He looked at Leo, seemingly recognizing him, then at us. He looked back to Leo, and in a bass voice that felt like it shook my voice, he said,
"All right. You know the rules, however.
Then he walked back behind the tree. Andre, the youngest of us, went to check behind the tree. The huge man wasn't there anymore. Then, Leo told us this.
All right, you're all getting in my truck, and I'm driving. Rules tonight are simple. You don't say God or Jesus while in my truck. No one gets in or out until we get to our destination. No one goes to a church or anything that's stupid, and we absolutely have to be back by sunrise. Don't worry, I've done this plenty of times before. It's perfectly safe.
We started having our doubts at that moment, and in fact Carl decided he wanted nothing to do with this and left, so there were now only 7 of us. We piled up into the truck and Leo drove off into the night. Anyway, everything seemed normal for the first 2 minutes of the trip, then Leo turned onto a dirt road. Now, I want you to understand something. Northern Canada is a fucking wasteland. There is nothing up there. If you get lost, you're pretty much dead, and most dirt roads lead nowhere. They're usually the result of people driving off to go get wasted in the woods or the lumber industry making its way into the forest. So, you can understand why a few of us got nervous when he decided to follow a dirt road in the middle of the night in winter. Still, he shushed us and reminded us not to say the forbidden words. Then, we saw something. Far, far ahead, there seemed to be a light. Like a dancing blue flame, far in the distance. Leo didn't seem to be driving all that fast. Yet sometimes the trees around us seemed to zip by at lightning speed, while at other times too slow to a crawl. The dirt road seemed to curve and twist. And, weirdest of all, we kept passing people on the side of the road. In the dead of winter, in the middle of nowhere, people are just walking on the side of the road, sometimes wearing nothing but rags. Andre said we should stop for them. Leo called him stupid and told him to sit back down. After about an hour of this, the light disappeared and we arrived at the end of the dirt road, where it connected to another road going across it. Leo turned right on it, and a few kilometers in front of us we could see the Jacques Cartier Bridge. We looked behind us, and couldn't see the dirt road. We seemed to be on a highway. So, we got into town. He drove each of us to our places, taking note of where we stayed so he could pick us back up when it was time to leave, then left on his own. Needless to say, our relatives were baffled. Personally, I went to visit my girlfriend. She was kind of freaked out, but really happy to see me anyway. We had a dinner. Nothing fancy though, since we had both already eaten, watched a movie and had sex. At 4 in the morning, the doorbell rang. Elise was wondering who it was, but I answered right away and there was Leo. He looked drunk. Really drunk. He fucking stank of it. He told me to get in the truck right now and that we had no time to lose. I barely took the time to say goodbye to Elise before leaving. I still think it's what would eventually lead to us breaking up. Me showing up out of nowhere, then fucking off without a proper goodbye. So, I got into the truck. 5 of us. He needed to pick up 2 more. Thing is, he decided he didn't feel like it. He wanted to go home. We had no clue what would happen if he didn't pick them up, and it took over half an hour of arguing and even threatening to get him to pick them up. By the time we left Montreal, it was 5:15 a.m. We'd be back just in time for the sunrise. So, Leo got on the highway, then drove into a dirt road. Seemingly not the same as the one we had arrived from, but as soon as we were on it, the light reappeared and he followed it. At least for about 20 minutes, and that's when everything went to shit. At some point, we slowed down, though we weren't aware of it at first because of the surreal feeling I had explained earlier. It became clear that it was Leo slowing down though, and eventually he stopped. The people who had been walking alongside the road began approaching the truck. I noticed they were really fucking pale. He looked at us, then said,
"Give me a minute, guys, I need to go take a piss."
Then grabbed the door handle. Guy was quick enough to grab him and stop him, however. Somehow, we managed to wrestle him to the back of the truck and I took the driver's seat. Driving, following the light like he had. That's when he started cursing. Cursing like a fucking sailor. And everyone freaked out, knowing he would eventually say, Jesus, or God. Suddenly, someone stuffed a sock in his mouth and two of the guys were holding him down. We drove like that with him freaking out in the backseat for about half an hour when something hit me in the back of the head. I didn't realize it then, but the others told me it's Leo who kicked me in the back of the head. Still, the road was icy and bumpy, so that was more than enough to make me lose control of the truck. The last thing I remember is us crashing into a snowy ditch. I woke up in the common house on a sofa in the morning. The other workers had found us in a snowbank outside, passed out. They were worried we had died of hypothermia or something, but turns out we were all right, just a bit cold and shaken, as if we had just passed out there. I looked around and noticed Leo was missing. They told us he had gotten up this morning and left to go work in another work camp. He had left in his truck, driving north. We would call the one work camp further north later on to check on him. They say he never came in. Never heard of him again. I'm still not quite sure of what happened that night. Maybe we all imagined it. Maybe we were drunk. Maybe it was a prank. Still, to this day, I freak out a little when a large man walks up from behind me, and I still have dreams of the light in the distance, dancing and taunting us as I seek the road back to my home.
B14 or 15 Christmas Eve. It's late, I'm up playing Vidya or working on some shit. Comfy and tired, but don't want to go to bed yet. Comfy Christmas Pepe.png. Need that sweet caffeine. Decide to make like Forrest Gump and obtain Dr. Pepper. Silently operate down hallway, careful not to wake family. Hallway opens to an indoor balcony overlooking the living room, which is dominated by a Christmas tree and big picture windows. Moonless night looms thick and impenetrable on the far side of the glass. Dark AF inside except for the light of the tree, which casts the room in dim shades of stained glass and fine, muted shadows. Against the far wall an old stereo cabinet sits, and atop it an heirloom music box that plays Little Drummer Boy. 90 to 100 years old or something, dunno. Not very spoopy. It's in great condition for its age, and despite the music box connotation, the tune it plays is just too nice to be eerie. It sits out somewhere every Christmas to this day, and had every year before then. Have only positive, comfy associations. Everything is in its right place. I steal down the stairs, my glorious 23 flavors drawing ever nearer. Only something's up. I freeze mid-step. Adrenaline seeps into my blood. The music box is playing. Not just a little either, but strongly, and from a full wind. Early in the song too. Tactically shit holiday gift-wrapped bricks. Nobody has been up for hours, and it rarely gets wound anyway. Certainly, no way it's been going the whole time. Can't decide if I should be terrified or having some profound religious experience. Steel myself for haunting by 3 chronoghosts who will presumably instruct me on the health effects of staying up too late all the time and approach the music box. Pick it up, stare dumbfounded at the key as it goes round and round in the bottom, just as fast as it should from full wind. Can't make myself put it down, though half of me is full fight or flight mode. It's little drummer boy. On Christmas. Surely it can't be anything bad. Come on, that's some magical spirit of Christmas shit. Still anxious AF, but don't want to seem ungrateful if it is some /x/tier benevolent shit. Muster what little breath I have and look over to the Christmas tree and the darkness behind it. Sup, Jesus. Managed to sound pretty cool and composed. Thanks for helping people and stuff. Happy birthday. Set music box back down. Feel the warm, safe light from my room upstairs beckoning me. I've played along with the holiday magic. It's all good. I can obey the urge to 360 and walk real fast out. But I've come too far for that. No man left behind. Wave. Power, walk over to the fridge. Retrieve Dr. Pepper. Sprint the fuck upstairs, shut the door, and return to Vidya, pretending as hard as I can that didn't just happen. And that's how I got spooked by Jesus dropping by to show my never really believed in Santa-ass self a little Christmas magic. Supposedly some of the shit that happened when I was young was on par, but I haven't experienced anything quite like it since.
Doubt anyone would believe me, but I feel like I should get this off my chest. I'm probably screwed anyways, so try and understand what I'm going through. Be me. Be 22 years. Lives in a normal yet shitty neighborhood. Lived here for 3 years. Today's the day I get to meet my new neighbors, named the Underwood family. They arrived and we introduced ourselves. A husband named Dan, a wife named Amanda, and a 13-year-old daughter named Maria. The couple were nice people, yet Maria is an enigma teen, always being shy and creepy as fuck. She has long dark hair, a bit skinny, and had sandbags hanging on her eyes. Me and Maria started hanging out, get along subtly. Tells me she has anorexia, depression, and a painful past that haunts her. Bullies made fun of her weight and beauty even to this day. And that she always wishes to become a living doll, forever beautiful, weightless, and immortal so that she wouldn't be made fun of any longer. Da fuck. JPG. Aside from her creepy past shit, we became friends. The more we spent together, the more she felt attached to me. I willingly played with dolls with her every time she wanted me to keep her company. We also took pictures of ourselves with dolls in our hands. Sometimes she liked to send pictures of herself with a variety of dolls. Don't know why, but whatever. Be 6 months later on Christmas Eve and things got more creepier as shit. I heard that Maria died. Feeling a bit sad, she left and decided to attend to her funeral. Yet when I asked information about the funeral, people told me there wasn't any going on. I told them Maria Underwood died and a funeral was going to take place. Yet to my surprise, a couple of people told me that the Underwood family died 70 years ago. Briggs has been shat.gif. Went to Underwood's house only to see it in a dilapidated condition. Did research on the owner of the house, and discovered that no one bought the house for years. Talked to my parents about the Underwood family, and they don't know what I'm talking about. Fuck my life.jpg. On Christmas Eve night, I went to get the mail out of the mailbox. There was a letter for me from an unknown address. The only thing on that envelope was my first name. Opens it. Received a short letter and read it.
Dear Anon, thank you for the time we spent together. I had fun playing dolls with you and I wished we could had played more. Even though I didn't had much time left, I figured that I should give you one last photo of me, just for good luck. Though I won't be gone for good, I'll still watch over you forever. I will be your silent guardian and your watchful protector. My dream shall become your dream soon. And when your time comes, we will be together in our heaven, forever playing and acting like dolls like we used to. Merry Christmas, Maria.
there was something else in the envelope. It was a dark picture. Went to a light source to get a better view. Takes a good look at it. And on that day, I would never look at dolls the same way ever again. Pic related.
Hey Anons. I hope you all have great Christmas dinners. I hope you all get the presents you want. I hope I see everyone last one of you in 2022 and beyond. And remember, if you think no one cares about you, I do. And I want to see you happy. Merry Christmas you wonderful Anons and Femanons.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.